The sky above the planet, Krylon 7, burned red with fires of destruction. Buildings that once touched the clouds were now little more than piles of rubble, their twisted metal skeletons reaching like broken fingers toward the sky. Smoke choked the air, and the smell of scorched earth mixed with burning machinery. It was the end of the world for many human colonies, but not yet for the small group of survivors holding the city's last stronghold. Captain Elias Ward crouched behind a shattered wall, scanning the horizon. His armor was scratched and scorched from weeks of combat. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with the dirt and blood that smeared across his skin. His breath came in short, ragged gasps. "Captain," whispered Lena Rowe, a young soldier barely 20, her voice shaking. "They're everywhere. We can't hold them." Elias's eyes narrowed. "We have to. If we fall here, humanity falls with us. Every colony, every settlement, every family, gone. We fight or we disappear." The sound of distant engines rumbled like an approaching storm. Shadows moved along the shattered streets. The SCIFI, the alien race that had pushed humanity to the edge of extinction. Towering armored figures with translucent armored exoskeletons advanced silently. Their glowing eyes scanned the ruins, calculating every move. Each SCIFI carried a plasma blade, a weapon of lethal precision that could slice through metal as if it were paper. Elias's hand brushed the handle of his own blade. It was an old human model, reinforced with magnetic shielding, but even with it, he knew he was outmatched. The SCIFI were faster, stronger, and far more advanced in technology. Yet something about the desperation in the human heart always surprised the aliens. From the rubble ahead, a SCIFI warlord emerged, Threxall, commander of the alien forces in this sector. His armor shimmered in a strange light, and his blade glowed bright orange, humming with energy. He stepped over fallen soldiers with cold precision, his gaze fixed on Elias. "You cannot win, human," Threxall's voice boomed, carried by a strange translator device. "Your species is weak. Surrender, and your extinction will be swift." Elias stood tall, though his body trembled. He gripped his blade tightly. "We may be outnumbered," he said, his voice steady, "but we will never surrender. Not now. Not ever." A group of SCIFI soldiers flanked Threxall, moving in perfect synchronization. Elias counted them. 15, all armed with plasma blades, and more hiding among the ruins. The humans had no hope in numbers. Their rifles were damaged, their grenades almost gone. This battle seemed like the final one. Lena whispered, "Captain, we can't—" Elias held up a hand. "Watch and learn. Humans survive because we don't give up, Lena. Remember that." The SCIFI advanced, their blades crackling with lethal energy. Elias lunged forward, dodging the first strike. Sparks flew as his shield deflected the plasma edge. Around him, his soldiers fell back, injured or dead. But Elias fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. Every swing, every block, every movement was precise, driven by sheer will. Threxall moved closer, his glowing eyes scanning Elias. He raised his blade in a swift arc and threw it toward him. It spun in the air, a glowing streak of light. For a moment, the world slowed. Humans froze mid-step, watching the impossible. The blade cut the air like lightning, yet somehow, Elias's eyes tracked it perfectly. Time seemed to bend as he leapt forward. And then, he caught it. The plasma blade hummed in his hands, impossible energy coursing along its edge, yet Elias held it firm. The surrounding SCIFI stopped in their tracks, their mouths opened in silent shock, their glowing eyes widening. No human had ever done this before. No human had ever touched one of their weapons mid-flight. The soldiers who had survived the chaos stared in disbelief. Lena's jaw dropped. He caught it," she whispered. Elias looked at the blade, then back at Threxall. His chest heaved, but his grip was steady. "You underestimated us," he said, his voice ringing with confidence. Threxall blinked, a strange flicker crossing his alien features. His mind raced. No human had ever survived close combat like this. No human had ever shown such strength, such fearlessness. It was unnatural. The SciFi soldiers were frozen. Some lowered their weapons slightly, unsure if they should attack or retreat. The humans around Elias felt a surge of hope, the first in decades. Elias held the blade high. "This fight is not over because we are weak," he shouted. "It is over because we are strong, stronger than you imagined." A hush fell over the battlefield. Even the wind seemed to pause, carrying the faint sounds of distant explosions and the cries of the fallen. The SciFi advanced no further. Their numbers meant nothing against the will of a human who refused to fall. In that moment, Elias realized something incredible. It was not the blade, the weapons, or the armor that made humans dangerous. It was the spirit inside them. The determination to survive, to protect, to fight for something greater than themselves. That spirit could not be measured, predicted, or contained. Threxall took a step back, his grip on his own blade tightening, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "Impossible," he muttered. Elias glanced at his soldiers. Many were injured, some barely conscious, yet all were inspired by what they had just seen. A fire ignited in their hearts, one that no SciFi machine, no alien weapon could ever extinguish. He turned toward the ruined city streets. Reinforcements might never come, supplies might be gone, yet humans had survived worse odds before. They would survive again. The battle around them had not ended, but the tide had shifted. The humans moved forward slowly, carefully, their weapons ready but their courage renewed. Even the smallest victories mattered, rescuing a trapped soldier, blocking an attack, showing defiance. Threxall's voice boomed again, this time more cautiously. "Captain Elias Ward, your actions are remarkable. But do you truly believe you can turn this war with courage alone?" Elias smiled grimly, tightening his grip on the plasma blade. "Courage is never alone," he said. "It carries hope. It carries every life that fights beside you. And it carries the future." Around him, the human soldiers began to cheer quietly, their voices rising like a soft storm. Even in the ruins, hope had a sound the SciFi had never heard before. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the broken city, Elias looked up at the sky. The fires reflected in his eyes, but so did determination. The war was far from over, but in that single moment, he knew something vital. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were warriors of heart, mind, and soul, and that spirit, no alien could ever destroy. The battlefield of Krylon 7 fell silent for the first time in years. Not a single explosion, not a single shouted command. The SciFi soldiers, tens of thousands strong across the ruined city, froze in their positions. Their glowing eyes flickered back and forth between the human captain and the glowing plasma blade now firmly held in Elias Ward's hands. Elias stood on the rubble-strewn street, the blue-tinged light of the blade reflecting off his sweat-slicked face. Around him, the human soldiers stared in awe, some clutching broken weapons, some limping forward with what little strength they had. They had seen a miracle, a human catching a SciFi blade mid-air, and the impossible had become hope. Lena Rose's knees shook as she stepped closer to Elias. "Captain, did you really catch it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Elias didn't smile. He simply tightened his grip on the blade. "Yes," he said, voice firm. "And we can do more. We can fight. We can win if we don't give up." The SciFi warlord, Threxall, took a hesitant step backward. For the first time, doubt crept into his calculated mind. Humans were supposed to be predictable, weak, uncoordinated, yet here they were, holding one of his own deadliest weapons without fear. "You are not like the others, Threxall said slowly, the translator device garbling his words slightly. No human has ever survived this close. No human has ever... His voice faltered. He gestured toward the blade. You defy everything we know. Elias felt a surge of adrenaline. We defy limits, he said. We fight because we must, not because we are strong, because we will not quit. A ripple of whispers moved through the Xipher soldiers. They glanced at one another, their confidence shaken. Some took small steps back, uncertain of what their warlord expected them to do. Elias saw the hesitation. He saw an opening. "Soldiers!" Elias shouted. "Move forward! Show them humans do not break!" The humans hesitated at first, unsure if they could trust the odds. Their rifles were damaged, their armor was dented and scorched. Yet something in Elias's voice, something in the courage he carried like a shield, ignited a spark. One by one, they rose from cover, limping, staggering, but moving forward. The Xipher watched, confused. Their scanners and calculations should have predicted human behavior, but they could not. Humans were unpredictable, unyielding. They were not machines. A small human squad rushed forward, using the rubble as cover. One soldier, Jarek, tossed a makeshift grenade that exploded against a Xipher mech, the force throwing it off balance. Another Mila slashed at a Xipher soldier with a salvaged energy sword, forcing it to retreat. Every small victory, every human advance, made the Xipher hesitate further. Even the alien high-tech systems struggled to process these anomalies. Humans were fighting differently than expected, combining cunning, courage, and improvisation in ways no algorithm could predict. Threxall's hand hovered near his blade. He knew he could end this fight instantly. Yet something inside him restrained him. This human, this Elias, was not like the others. He carried not just strength, but an aura of defiance that seemed almost contagious. "Do not fight like they expect," Elias ordered. "Do not die like they expect. Move with purpose. Move with heart." The soldiers obeyed, advancing in small, calculated movements. Bullets flew, blades clashed, sparks and energy arcs lit the crumbling streets. The Xipher tried to retaliate with precision strikes, but each human seemed to anticipate the attack, countering with surprising skill. Lena's heart pounded as she dodged a plasma blade swing. She slashed at a Xipher soldier, wounding it. For the first time, she felt more than fear. She felt hope. "We can do this," she whispered under her breath. Elias caught sight of Threxall again, standing like a dark shadow against the burning horizon. The alien's eyes glowed brighter than ever, a mixture of anger and confusion. He had trained his entire life to break humans, yet here he stood, unable to predict their actions. "You are clever," Threxall said, almost to himself. "But cleverness will not save you. Strength will." Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward, raising the glowing blade. "Strength is not only in weapons," he said. "Strength is in spirit, in courage, in the refusal to give up. That is why humans survive when all odds are against us." The Xipher soldiers faltered again. Some looked at their comrades, doubt replacing the cold efficiency in their eyes. It was an unusual sight, an army trained to perfection now hesitating because of one human's courage. In that moment, Elias understood the true power of the human spirit. It was not the blade. It was not the tactics. It was the unshakable will to survive and protect. That will could inspire others, could change the course of events, could make even the strongest enemy hesitate. A loud roar shattered the quiet. Reinforcements, human survivors from nearby sectors had arrived. They had heard rumors of the impossible act, of Elias catching the plasma blade, and came to join the fight. Their arrival was unexpected, and the Xipher did not anticipate it. The human forces, though small compared to the alien army, now had momentum, their energy renewed. They fought with precision, using every scrap of cover, every trick learned in years of guerrilla warfare. Each step forward was a declaration. Humans would not die quietly. Threxall's eyes narrowed. He realized his army's hesitation was growing. The humans' unpredictability, combined with their courage, was something his species had never faced before. He called out orders, but his voice lacked the authority it once had. His soldiers looked to him for guidance, but even he was unsure. Elias advanced through the rubble, swinging the plasma blade with precise force. Each strike disrupted the Zyphers' formations, forcing them to retreat in small groups. He was not reckless, every move calculated, every swing purposeful. The humans around him followed his lead, moving as one, a small but unstoppable wave of defiance. Lena fought beside him, her fear replaced by determination. She parried a blow aimed at Elias and countered with a swift strike. The Zypher soldier froze, unprepared for such unexpected skill. "We can win this!" Lena shouted. "We will win!" Elias looked around at his soldiers. Though injured, exhausted, and outnumbered, they had found strength beyond themselves. Every small victory, rescuing a trapped comrade, deflecting a plasma strike, pushing forward inch by inch, added to their momentum. Threxall's confusion turned into concern. He had studied humans, observed them, calculated their limits, but none of it matched what he was seeing. One human, holding a blade meant to kill him, had inspired an army to advance against impossible odds. "Impossible," Threxall muttered again. "One human, against all, impossible." Yet the humans pressed forward. The noise of battle grew, but so did their resolve. It was no longer just survival. They were fighting to prove something, to show that even at the edge of extinction, humans could rise and defy expectation. Elias raised the plasma blade high, its glow cutting through the smoke-filled air. "We are not defeated," he shouted. "We are humans, and we do not quit." Around him, the soldiers echoed his cry. Even the weakest among them found strength in his words. The air itself seemed charged with determination, a force no alien weapon could measure. For the first time in decades, the Zypher faltered. Their numbers meant nothing against the unity, courage, and unpredictability of humans. One human had changed the battle, not by brute strength, not by technology, but by spirit. The humans moved forward, slowly reclaiming ground, one step at a time. Elias knew this was only the beginning, but the impossible had happened. The blade had been caught. The human spirit had been revealed. And the Zypher, for all their might, now understood that they faced more than flesh and bone. They faced a force they could not calculate or control. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the red glow over the ruins of Krylon 7 seemed less like destruction and more like a signal, a new beginning. Elias stood at the forefront, blade in hand, surrounded by his soldiers, and looked toward the horizon. This battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, humanity had hope, and hope was more dangerous than any weapon. The battlefield on Krylon 7 was eerily quiet, though the faint crackle of energy weapons and distant explosions still echoed across the ruins. The humans had advanced cautiously, inch by inch, reclaiming streets that were once thought lost. Every step forward reminded them that survival was not about numbers or weapons, it was about heart. Captain Elias Ward stood atop a broken wall, surveying the remnants of the Zypher army. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the battlefield. The alien soldiers moved with mechanical precision, yet now they hesitated, uncertain how to respond. The impossible act, catching the plasma blade midair, had unsettled them. Lena Rowe ran up beside him, her breathing heavy. "Captain, they're stopping. Some of them aren't even attacking." Elias nodded. "Yes, they're confused. They don't understand humans like us. They think courage and willpower can be calculated. But it can't. That's why we have the advantage now." From the ruins emerged Threxall, his steps measured and careful. He had regrouped his elite soldiers, trying to restore the illusion of control. Yet even he felt doubt gnawing at him. Humans were supposed to flee in the face of a plasma blade assault. Humans were supposed to break under pressure. Yet Elias and his soldiers moved forward with unwavering purpose. "You continue to defy expectation, human," Threxall said, his voice resonating through his translator. "One human should not inspire this resolve. Your species is unpredictable." Elias raised the glowing plasma blade he still held, the energy humming as if alive. "Unpredictable is our strength. We survive when you expect us to fail. We adapt when you think you have us cornered. That is why humanity will not fall." A murmur passed through the human ranks. They had been beaten, scattered, and almost destroyed. Yet Elias's words breathed life into them. Every soldier who had survived, no matter how injured, now stood a little taller, their resolve harder, their courage renewed. The Zephyr soldiers paused. Their scanners could detect physical strength, energy levels, and strategy, but they could not measure willpower, heart, or spirit. It was a quality entirely foreign to them, and one that now dominated the battlefield. A small human squad pushed forward, securing a ruined command post. Inside, they found supplies, energy cells, medical kits, and ammunition. The human soldiers exchanged glances, relief and hope shining in their eyes. Even small victories mattered. They were proof that humanity could endure, could fight back, and could survive against impossible odds. Threxall's gaze shifted across the battlefield. He watched as his forces faltered, some stepping back, others freezing entirely. The humans were moving with unity and purpose. Each act of defiance seemed to spread like wildfire through the ranks, infecting fear into even the most disciplined soldiers. Elias spotted a group of Zephyr advancing toward a cornered human squad. He shouted orders, precise and clear. "Jarek, left flank! Mila, cover the rear! Keep them trapped in their own advance!" The humans executed the maneuvers flawlessly. In the chaos, even untrained civilians who had joined the fight improvised clever traps using rubble, energy wires, and debris. The Zephyr advanced, only to find themselves entangled, slowed, and confused. Threxall's mind raced. He had studied humans extensively. He had seen countless battles, calculated countless outcomes. Yet here, one human had changed the tide of an entire sector. Elias was not only strong, he was smart, strategic, and inspiring. It was something no algorithm or genetic enhancement could counter. "You see," Elias said quietly to Lena as they moved through the ruins, "we are not just fighters. We are thinkers, leaders, and survivors. Every act of courage spreads. Every step forward breaks fear." Lena's eyes shone with admiration. "It's true, Captain. I never knew humans could push so far, even when all seems lost." Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. "You see it now, Lena. That is the power we hold. That is why we are dangerous." Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, Threxall called his officers together. His expression was hard to read, but inside, turmoil brewed. The Zephyr had fought countless species, crushed entire civilizations, and considered humans inferior. Yet here they were, standing firm, moving forward and refusing to break. "Your calculations are failing," Threxall said sharply to his lieutenant. "Why do they not yield? Why does one human inspire this?" His lieutenant, a younger Zephyr officer named Vrylan, hesitated. "They fight with purpose, Threxall. Not for survival alone, but for something beyond fear. Their spirit, it cannot be measured, it cannot be predicted." Threxall growled softly, a sound humans could not hear but felt in the tremor of the air. "Impossible. They are not machines. They are something else, something dangerous." Back on the front lines, Elias led a daring move. He charged into the center of the remaining Zephyr squad, swinging the plasma blade with precise force. Sparks flew as it met other energy weapons. The humans around him pressed forward in perfect coordination. One human grabbed a fallen Zephyr shield and used it to block attacks, while another flanked from behind, showing strategy born of quick thinking rather than brute strength. The Zephyr soldiers faltered. Some retreated. Others froze, unsure if they should continue fighting or withdraw. Humans were proving unpredictable. They were proving clever. And most of all, they were proving they would not yield. Lena ducked under a swing and thrust forward, her makeshift blade forcing a Zephyr back. "Captain, look! They're hesitating!" Elias nodded, eyes sharp. "Good. Keep pressing. Fear is stronger than weapons." The humans advanced steadily. Each inch taken was a declaration. They would not be defeated. And with every step, Threxel's confidence weakened. He had underestimated humans, and now the consequences were visible across the battlefield. "You may have strength in numbers," Elias shouted, his voice carrying across the ruins, "but we have courage, and courage is unstoppable." The humans echoed him, a unified chorus of defiance and hope. The sound carried further than any gunfire. It was a message that reached the Zephyr soldiers. Humans would not yield. Threxel's own forces were crumbling, not because of lack of skill or firepower, but because of something alien to their logic, human determination. For decades, Zephyr had believed victory was assured. Now, for the first time, they doubted. Elias paused for a moment, scanning the battlefield. His soldiers, though battered, were alive, moving with confidence. They had won small victories, but more importantly, they had proven that the human spirit could not be measured, predicted, or destroyed. Lena stood beside him, her face streaked with grime and sweat. "Captain, we're really doing it. They're stopping." Elias's eyes narrowed on Threxel in the distance. "Yes, Lena, they're realizing what we always knew. Humans are dangerous not because of weapons or numbers, but because of who we are. Our courage, our unpredictability, our refusal to surrender. That is what they cannot defeat." A sudden roar from Threxel pulled their attention. The alien commander raised his hand, signaling a halt. His soldiers froze instantly. The battlefield quieted once more, though this time it was not fear, it was realization. Elias lowered the plasma blade slightly, but did not relax. "They're afraid," Lena said softly. "No," Elias corrected. "They're learning. They are realizing humans are more than they imagined, and when they understand that, it changes everything." Across the battlefield, Zephyr soldiers whispered among themselves, hesitant to move forward. Threxel's elite guard looked to him for guidance, but even he paused. He had witnessed an impossible act, a display of courage that no Zephyr training or technology could counter. Elias watched carefully. The humans had gained momentum, but he knew the war was far from over. They had inspired hope, shifted fear and broken hesitation, but Threxel was still formidable, and the Zephyr were still numerous. Yet in this moment, for the first time in decades of endless war, humans could see a glimmer of victory. They were not just surviving, they were rising. And the aliens were beginning to realize that the war might not be theirs to win anymore. Elias took a deep breath and raised the plasma blade high, its glow illuminating the ruins around him. "Forward," he said quietly, yet with absolute authority. "We fight not for death, but for life, for every human who still believes, for every home we still protect, and for the future that cannot be stolen." Around him, the humans moved again, with purpose, with courage, and with the certainty that they were more than just survivors. They were humans, and they would never surrender. The Zephyr froze once more, uncertain, calculating, but now the truth was clear. Humans were unstoppable when their spirit was awakened, and that realization would change the war forever. The city of Krylon 7 was no longer a battlefield dominated by fear. The fires still burned in the ruined buildings, and the smoke still darkened the sky, but a new force had emerged amidst the chaos. Humans, battered and exhausted, were no longer retreating. They were advancing. Step by step, they took ground that had once been lost, proving that courage was stronger than fear. Captain Elias Ward moved carefully through the rubble with Lena Rowe and a small group of soldiers. Their eyes scanned the horizon, searching for threats, yet the alien soldiers seemed unsure, scattered by the earlier displays of human courage. Even the most disciplined Cypher units hesitated, unsure whether to attack or hold their positions. "Captain," Lena whispered, pointing toward a small ridge. "Some of their units are retreating, or at least stopping. They're confused." Elias's jaw tightened. "Yes. Confusion is our ally now, but we cannot underestimate them. One wrong move, and they'll regroup." The humans advanced carefully, using cover and small tactics that the Cypher could not anticipate. They moved as a unit, communicating silently through gestures and quick commands, pressing forward with confidence. Each step carried a message. We are humans. We do not yield. From the distance, Threxall watched, his glowing eyes narrowing. His elite soldiers were holding position, but more and more of his forces were hesitant. Some Cypher soldiers whispered among themselves. Others glanced toward the retreating lines. The humans' unexpected bravery had begun to infect doubt even in the most loyal warriors. Threxall's voice, amplified through his translator, carried across the ruins. "Hold your positions! Do not advance!" But even as he commanded, hesitation spread. The humans were clever, unpredictable, and relentless. One human had already caught a plasma blade mid-air, a feat no Cypher could understand, and now they were leading their soldiers forward with unity and purpose. Elias spotted a small group of Cypher moving toward a barricade to flank his soldiers. He raised his plasma blade, pointing it toward them. "Jarek, take the left flank. Mila, cover the rear. Everyone else, push forward. Slow, steady, careful." The humans executed the maneuver with precision. Jarek sprinted across the rubble, narrowly avoiding a blast from a Zephyr energy rifle, and slashed at an advancing soldier. Mila tossed a makeshift energy net, tangling a Zephyr mech and forcing it to stumble. The humans' small victories piled up, and with each success, their confidence and momentum grew. Threxall's mind raced. He had fought countless battles, crushed many species, yet humans were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their courage, their unpredictability, their spirit. It was beyond calculation, beyond control. He realized that they were not simply defending themselves, they were inspiring one another, turning fear into strength. Elias moved closer to the center of the battlefield, the glowing blade in his hand cutting through the smoke-filled air. He could see the scattered human survivors around him, struggling but determined. They fought not because they were ordered to, not because of strategy alone, but because they refused to give up. Every move, every step forward, demonstrated something the Cypher could not understand, the power of human will. "Captain," Lena called out. "They're breaking! Some of the Cypher units are retreating!" Elias nodded, his eyes sharp. "Good! Let them see that humans are not weak. Let them see that courage is stronger than fear." A sudden explosion in the distance caused a small group of Cypher soldiers to fall back. Another squad stumbled, unsure where to advance. Even their machines seemed momentarily paralyzed by the unexpected courage of their opponents. The humans had shifted the battlefield's energy simply by refusing to surrender. Threxall's voice was low, almost to himself. "Impossible! One species, one human, can change everything." He signaled his lieutenant, Vrylan, who approached cautiously. "Commander," Vrylan said, "they are different. They are stronger than we predicted. One human has inspired their soldiers to move with determination we cannot calculate. Their courage is spreading." Threxal's claws tightened around his weapon. "Yes, and it terrifies me. If we cannot predict them, if we cannot break their will, we risk losing this entire war." Meanwhile, Elias led a daring move. He spotted a Zephyr energy cannon that had been targeting human positions for weeks. With Lena and 2 others, he devised a plan. Using debris for cover, they approached silently and disabled the cannon, destroying its control system. Sparks flew as it collapsed, and the remaining Zephyr soldiers nearby panicked. The humans pressed forward. Small groups rescued trapped comrades, diverted enemy forces, and reclaimed strategic positions one by one. The tide of battle was turning, not because of numbers, but because of determination and ingenuity. Elias raised the plasma blade high. Its glow illuminated the ruins and reflected in the eyes of his soldiers. "Forward!" he shouted. "Step by step, we take back what is ours. Humans never quit." Around him, the human soldiers responded with cries of determination. They advanced like a wave, their unity unbroken despite injuries, exhaustion, and loss. Even the smallest human acts, throwing a rock to distract, blocking a plasma blast with a shield, pulling a comrade to safety, were amplified by courage. Threxal watched helplessly as the humans gained ground. His elite guard tried to regroup, but hesitation had taken root. Some soldiers whispered among themselves, questioning whether they should continue the fight. Others retreated, unsure of the purpose of continuing against a species that refused to break. Elias pressed forward, leading a small squad through the ruined streets to reclaim a strategic command hub. Every step was calculated. Every action inspired his soldiers. They moved not just to survive, but to prove that humans were more than what the Zephyr had believed. Lena ducked under a swinging plasma blade, striking the Zephyr soldier back. "We can do this, Captain! We're taking ground!" "Yes," Elias said, his voice steady and strong. "We are humans. That is why we survive. That is why we win. Fear does not belong to us. It belongs to them." Across the battlefield, the Zephyr forces faltered more and more. Threxal's own soldiers began to question his orders. The humans' courage, resilience, and strategy had broken their discipline. For the first time in history, a human had changed the perception of the enemy entirely. Threxal's mind raced. He realized that continuing the war in the same way could result in total defeat. The humans had shown something his species had never seen before: unity, courage, and an unyielding spirit. One human, Elias Ward, had sparked a movement that could topple the Zephyr's advantage. He raised his hand, signaling a halt to his forces. The battlefield froze again, though this time the humans were not afraid. They moved forward cautiously, but their momentum had grown. The Zephyr were beginning to understand that this was no longer a simple fight. It was a test of spirit, and they were losing. Elias lowered the plasma blade slightly, sensing the hesitation of his enemy. "Do not stop now," he whispered to Lena. "We've gained momentum. Push forward. Every step forward weakens them and strengthens us." Small human squads reclaimed barricades, re-established communication lines, and moved to secure the city. Each action spread confidence through the ranks. Humans who had been terrified just hours ago now fought with skill, bravery, and determination. Threxal observed from the distance, realizing the truth he could no longer deny. The humans' courage, unity, and unpredictability were rewriting the rules of this war. One species had underestimated another, and now the cost of that miscalculation became clear. Elias stood in the center of the reclaimed street, glowing blade in hand, looking out at his soldiers. Though battered, exhausted, and scarred, they were alive, and they were winning, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of spirit. "Forward," he said again, softly but firmly. "We fight for survival, for humanity, for hope. And hope is stronger than any weapon." The humans moved together, slowly but surely, reclaiming their world one step at a time. For the first time in decades, the Xipher were beginning to fear. Not for themselves, but for the realization that humans were more than they had ever imagined. And in that moment, Captain Elias Ward knew something vital. The war was shifting. The power was no longer in sheer force. It was in human courage, and that courage could change everything. The battlefield of Krylon 7 was quiet now, but it was not the quiet of defeat. It was the quiet of realization. Fires still burned in the ruins, smoke hung heavy in the air, and distant debris shifted in the wind, but humans were moving forward without fear. Their advance had been steady, deliberate, unstoppable. Captain Elias Ward stood on a mound of rubble, the glowing plasma blade in his hands. His chest heaved. Sweat and soot streaked across his face. Around him, his soldiers, though exhausted and battered, moved with renewed determination. The impossible had been done. Humans had survived the Xipher's greatest weapons, their tactics, and their fearsome army. Lena Rose stood beside him, helping a wounded soldier to his feet. Her face was smeared with dirt, but her eyes sparkled with hope. "Captain, it's happening. They're stopping. They're really stopping." Elias's eyes narrowed. Yes, they are realizing the truth. Humans are not just survivors. We are fighters, thinkers, and unbreakable spirits. And now, the Xipher understand that courage cannot be destroyed. From the distance, Threxall, the Xipher warlord, raised his hand, signaling a halt to his forces. His elite soldiers, once the fiercest in the galaxy, froze. Their glowing eyes flickered uncertainly as they scanned the humans who were advancing steadily, bravely, and without hesitation. Elias stepped forward, walking across the broken street with the blade in hand. He wanted to see the enemy, not to attack, but to face them. For the first time in decades, a human would confront the alien leader, not with anger or hatred, but with courage and clarity. Threxall's voice boomed, carried by his translator. "Captain Elias Ward, your actions are remarkable. One human has changed the tide of this battle. Your courage, it cannot be calculated. It cannot be defeated." Elias held the blade steady, its glow bright against the crimson sky. "It is not just me, Threxall," he said. "It is every human here. Every soldier who refused to quit. Every life that stood against overwhelming odds. Courage is in our hearts, and it cannot be taken from us." Around the battlefield, humans began helping each other, tending to the wounded, reclaiming strategic positions, and standing tall where fear once ruled. Even the smallest human actions, pulling a comrade out of danger, blocking a plasma strike, rescuing a trapped soldier, were part of a larger truth. Humans never surrender willingly. Threxall's elite guard stepped back, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. The Xipher High Council had sent thousands of soldiers, expecting to crush the human resistance once and for all. But now, doubt had spread through the ranks. Humans were not predictable. Humans were not weak. Humans were unstoppable when united by courage. Elias looked toward the horizon. Fires and smoke painted the sky red. But beyond it, he could see humans beginning to reclaim more of the ruined city. Their small victories were not only physical, they were a testament to spirit, determination, and hope. Threxall stepped forward, holding his blade, though he made no move to attack. "Captain, we underestimated your species. One human, your courage. It has inspired the others. It has broken our discipline. Your people are dangerous." Elias's voice was calm, steady, but full of power. "Dangerous because we refuse to give up. Dangerous because we fight not for destruction but for life. That is what you do not understand. That is what no weapon, no army can ever defeat. The Zephyr soldiers exchanged glances. Their war machines remained, their weapons primed, but hesitation had taken root. The humans' courage had spread like a wave, infecting uncertainty even among the most loyal soldiers. Threxal raised his hand higher. Enough! The fighting ends! A hush fell over the battlefield. Humans froze for a moment, unsure if this was a trick, but Elias signaled them to hold position. Slowly they lowered their weapons. The Zephyr stopped advancing. For the first time, silence replaced the chaos of war. Elias took a deep breath and stepped closer to Threxal. "This war is over," he said firmly. "Not because you surrendered to strength or fear, but because we showed what humanity truly is. Our courage, our unity, our refusal to be broken. This cannot be defeated." Threxal lowered his blade, his glowing eyes dimming slightly. "It is true. Your species has surprised us in ways we did not anticipate. The war cannot continue." Around them, the humans began reclaiming their positions. Some tended to wounded Zephyr soldiers who had been trapped, showing mercy and restraint. Others helped rebuild damaged structures, reclaiming the city bit by bit. Humanity had won not just through fighting, but through showing that courage, unity, and hope were stronger than fear and destruction. Lena approached Elias, helping him steady a wounded soldier. "Captain, do you think this is really over?" Elias's eyes scanned the battlefield, noting the humans helping each other, the Zephyr retreating to regroup, and the fires slowly dying down. "Yes," he said softly. "The war is over, not because weapons decided it, not because numbers decided it, but because we showed the truth. Humans do not give up. We never have, and we never will." The human soldiers cheered quietly, some raising their hands in triumph, others embracing comrades. For the first time in decades, humanity was no longer on the brink of extinction. They had survived. They had fought back. They had shown the Zephyr and the galaxy that courage was more powerful than technology, willpower more powerful than numbers. Threxal watched, a flicker of respect crossing his alien features. "Captain Elias Ward, your species has earned its freedom. The war ends today." Elias lowered the glowing blade and turned to face his soldiers. "This is not just my victory," he said. "It is yours. Every soldier who stood their ground, every human who refused to surrender. We fought for life, for hope, and for the future. And we won." A young soldier named Jarek, injured but alive, smiled through his grime-streaked face. "We did it, Captain. We really did it." "Yes," Elias replied, his voice soft but filled with pride. "We did. Humanity did." Across the city, human survivors began rebuilding. Makeshift shelters were established, medical aid distributed, and communication lines restored. Even the Zephyr who had been captured were treated with care, showing that humanity's victory was not only in battle, but in restraint and leadership. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the ruined city. The glow of fires reflected in Elias's eyes, but now they also reflected something more: hope. A new era had begun. Humanity had survived, had risen from the brink of destruction, and had shown that courage and spirit could never be defeated. Elias looked at the plasma blade in his hand, a weapon that had once symbolized death and destruction. Now, it symbolized resilience, hope, and the human spirit. He handed it carefully to a young soldier. "Remember this," he said. "It is not just a weapon. It is a reminder. No matter the odds, no matter the darkness, humans never give up." Lena stood beside him, her eyes wide as she watched the humans and Zephyr alike begin to clear the battlefield peacefully. "Captain, they understand now. The Zephyr understand. We've changed everything." "Yes," Elias said, smiling faintly. "Not through hate, not through fear, but through courage. That is what makes humans strong. That is what makes us unstoppable." The humans gathered, exhausted but alive. They looked around at the ruined city and realized something profound. They had survived not just the battle, but the doubt, the despair, and the fear that had haunted them for so long. They were no longer victims. They were survivors. They were warriors. They were humans. And in the distance, Threxall and his forces retreated, carrying with them the lesson they would never forget. Human courage cannot be measured, controlled, or defeated. Elias lowered his gaze to the horizon. The war was over, but the future was just beginning. Humanity had survived. Humanity had fought. Humanity had risen. And one day, the story of that impossible battle, the day a human caught a plasma blade mid-air and inspired a species to stop fighting, would be remembered as the moment the galaxy truly realized the power of the human spirit.